Hello guys, I'm back with another lineup video and this time we'll be going through my lineups on Bind. If you do not know, if you haven't watched the last video, the video on Ascent, I would highly suggest you watch it because I'll be going over some of the indicators I use such as Q dot, Q left line, Q right line, Q left corner, Q right corner, and a couple others. I would recommend watching that, otherwise you might not understand this video entirely, but let's get over my lineups for Bind on B first. These are the spots I have lineups for B on Bind.
Gun here.
Default,
Gun here.
right corner, and top. That's what I'll be naming them, so you don't get confused on which one I'm doing the lineup for. First one for default, you go on top of the well in this corner right here. Next up, you want to align your Q dot where this little canister here curves. Once you've done that, shoot your Molotov and it should land directly on default. As seen right here. Covers quite a good bit as well. Next up for default, I have one from CT. This could be good when you know the enemies are on site but haven't planted yet, just to stall their plant for a little bit, or force them to plant somewhere else, or the situational situation when you'll be doing it from here. Stand behind these three canisters or cans over here. Aim the right Q dot or right Q line right here at this curve. Once you aim it at the corner there, the first curve, the right corner of the first curve, it should bounce against the back wall and land like so, covering a good bit of default. Next up, in mid-top on B side, you want to go stand right here in this corner. You want to aim it to where your Q dot is in the bottom of the shadow right here, and the left corner of your Q lines up with the metal bar right there, like so.
Molly!
If you shoot it, this should land directly in the middle and detonate fairly immediately, causing it to do the entirety of mid here. This was a very precise lineup to make, so if you mess it up, you might want to try it a few times in a custom game first, because you have to be pretty specific about it landing here, because if it lands on either of those things, it'll bounce out and land right there. And the last one for B will be on the right side. You'll be standing right here in this corner on well, and you'll put your Q dot at the between the second and third yellow panel at the bottom, like so.
Molly!
Once you shoot this, this should land fairly immediately and detonate it as well. Lands in that corner and covers quite a good bit. For the next lineup on default on Bind B, this one's a little gimmicky, so I don't typically use it, because it's very inconsistent sometimes. But I can see why people would use it to avoid or create suspicion, or create confusion on the enemy team. You go stand in this corner right here, and aim your Q dot at this corner right here. Between these two metal silos, I don't know what to call them. Once you aim it at between there, the point where they split, it should land on top of a stupid bump right here and bounce to the right, causing it to detonate, as well as a little bit of inside of the tube. This one isn't really consistent though, as I've said. I've seen multiple times before that it lands like right here and then bounces against the box, bounces back, or whatever. So I wouldn't recommend using this, but it is another lineup. These are all the spots I have lineups for A on Bind. I'll be naming this one default,
Gun here.
in front of default, triple boxes, and in front of triple boxes, like so. Next up, on Bind A, default, you will stand on top of the ton right there, top of the barrel. You'll be aiming at the top wire where the building and the wire separate each other, like so.
Molly!
It'll have a weird bounce from right over here and cover as well default as in front of default. This is a very good lineup for when there isn't a sage wall, and it detonates fairly quickly as well. Next one for default will be For if there is a sage that walls like so.
Right here.
That walls off a side like this. Why this lineup won't work when there's a sage wall is the sage wall will block it or put it in a different position than it needs to be. So when your sage has walled that, if you have a sage, put your right Q corner where this line and the balloon separate each other. Like so.
Molly.
Once you shoot this, it should land all the way over here, bounce against back, and detonate like so. It's a bit weird, I know how it detonates. Sometimes it'll bounce like this, but it'll basically always cover default. This next lineup is in front of default on A. Why I do this lineup is sometimes people like
Right
planting here more when there's smokes covering it.
Right
Or when a
here.
sage walls it like this, it's easier to plant in front of default. You'll be still standing on the same barrel, but this time you will line up your Q dot with the blue line, the bottom of the blue line right there. Not your Q dot, but the right Q corner. Like so.
Molly.
It will just go over everything, bounce once, bounce twice, and pretty much land on there and cover it. Doesn't matter if there's a
Right
sage
here.
wall blocking this, it'll still land perfectly fine. Next up, triple boxes from showers. You'll be standing in this corner right here, and you'll be aiming the top of your crosshair from your Q ability right on there, on that leaf. Once you have done so, it should go all the way there, bounce against the back of the box, and detonate fairly quickly, covering everything. Now I know there's some sage that
Right
wall
here.
this area off to get the plant in the corner right here. This lineup will only work in this corner if the sage wall is just, if there's a sage wall here. If there isn't a sage wall here, this next lineup will work, but then land
Gun
there
here.
instead on triple boxes. So just be careful with this one. It has worked for me in competitive matches, but it is a little gimmicky. You'll be standing in corner of TP, right here. And then you'll be aiming the left side, the left bottom side of your health bar on this little leaf right there. Like so. Like corner to corner.
Molly.
Once you shoot this, it should just about get over everything. Like I said, if there's a sage wall, this will get stopped by the sage wall and detonate right here. But if there isn't a sage wall,
Right
it will
here.
land right there instead. So please do keep in mind this one is only good
Gun
for
here.
here if there's a sage wall
here.
blocking it like so. Those were all my lineups on Ascent, or on Bind A and B. Hope you enjoyed this video, I sure did. And if there's any new lineups you want me to make, for example, maybe you want me to make one from B
Right here.
short all the way to
Right here.
default, which I've seen some people do. Maybe you want me to make one from
Right here.
Defender spawn to
Right here.
default. I don't know. Just hit me up in the comments and I'll make sure to make another video about it to satisfy your needs. Hope you all have a good day and goodbye.